Secret history files. Identify Dr. Brian Sovryn, 21st century anarchist, tech journalist, game developer, creator of the podcast Sovryn Tech. Directly
What did I say? What did the Golden Stallion say so many weeks ago? I said, what you gonna do, Gawker, when Hulkamania goes wild on you, baby? And it went wild, along with Peter Thiel. And now, Gawker is filing Chapter 11, baby. They're filing bankruptcy. They're trying to sell off their properties to Ziff Davis, except for one. The only one they're not going to file off try to sell is Gawker, because that name is it's just mud now, as my grandma would say. Anyway, if you didn't hear that laughter, I'm, of course, joined this week by the lovely and hyper-intelligent, the Duchess of Debauchery, Dr. Stephanie Murphy.
See, Brian, there is a God.
Well, we might get into that later.
He has heard your prayers.
Yeah, boy, I tell you.
Sometimes dreams do come true.
They came true.
And what a way for Gawker to fall, too. I mean, now I will say, like, when a company files bankruptcy, they don't always necessarily stop operating, because sometimes the only way that they can get out of the bankruptcy is to continue bringing in cash.
Right.
So they may not actually be going away just yet, but if they're trying to sell off their properties, maybe, some change of management would be good for them.
Yeah, they are putting out the option to buy. I just heard that.
You should buy Gawker. Buy it and turn it into something else. That would be a twisted form of revenge.
The only
turn it into like a Hulk tribute site, a WrestleMania tribute site.
Damn right. That'd be awesome. It'd be great. That would be great if Hogan bought Gawker.
Yeah, they had to give it to him as reparations or restitution for the sex tape thing.
Hell yeah, that'd be fantastic. I'd buy IO9, like their Gizmodo property, and IO9's really the one that interests me. But anyway, obviously,
you've been always the most sympathetic towards IO9.
That's the one where, because there's nothing really else out there quite like it. It's sort of the modern day Omni, even though there is an Omni reboot. But that's a whole other story. But boy, if that's not the most exciting news, and I was shocked. I heard on other shows, people. What time is it? It's like 10:30.
Hey, we're doing this in the morning. We did a sex and science hour last night. We're up and at 'em this morning.
Yeah, and we're rocking it.
The busy life of a podcaster.
Yeah, that's right. But I was kind of surprised. Like I heard people actually saying, because everybody's talking about, it's like, oh, it's freedom of speech, blah blah blah, and it's like, well,
what's freedom of speech?
That Gawker, putting this stuff out there about everything. I mean, the narrative changed over and over again about this, but people are finally coming to the realization, because for a little while, like other journalists or commentators, whatever, were saying, well, we got to protect Gawker. It's like, we don't like Gawker, we hate Gawker, but we've got to, this could, come and bite us in the ass. But really, there's nothing legally you could do about how they felt what Peter Thiel was doing and all this stuff. I mean, there was no action you could take, but a lot of people were finally just coming out and saying, no, you know what? Gawker just needs to go. Like they're, I mean, and that's really the thing with the whole story, is that there's consequences to your actions. It's like, forget about, the legality and laws. I mean, laws are bullshit anyway, but just like, there's consequences. If you're going to open your mouth, well, there might be something that comes from that.
Absolutely.
Or comes out of that. So anyway.
You're not suggesting that Hulk Hogan beat them up or something.
Not at all.
That was a vague statement, but, obviously right, people may turn on you. Your audience may turn on you.
Yeah. Oh, certainly. I never advocate for violence. So, but I mean, Hogan definitely.
Sometimes you just don't explain yourself the best.
You're
Brian.
right.
This is
true.
why I'm here to try to clarify.
Yeah.
And interpret the Brian Sovereinisms to the rest of the world.
That's right. Thank you so much. So, but metaphorically, certainly, Hogan definitely gave the leg drop to Gawker. No doubt about that. So anyway,
and he got to have sex.
Yeah, and he got it on.
Yeah.
Right on, man. I love that guy. NWO, I tell you, it's for life, brother. That's for sure. Of course, the NWO is the group, the stable, as they call it in wrestling, that he was the head of.
The stable.
The stable of stallions.
Does it contain... What other stallions does it contain?
Well, I wore an NWO T-shirt.
Well, there's many reasons you could do that.
Yeah. Well, good point.
So, Brian, everybody seems to be doing a porn now. That, like, I learned.
Who's doing a porn?
I learned this week. Well, maybe this is old news, but it's new to me. I learned this week that, like, Screech from Saved by the Bell was in a porn. Dusty Diamond.
Oh, that is new news to you.
And you said John Wayne Bobbitt did, like, 2 porns.
Oh, we talked about that on Sex and Science Hour. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, it just seems like everyone's doing a porn. So what I want to know is, when you, in about 30, 40 years, when your podcasting career has maybe reached its peak, is there gonna be a Brian Sovereign sex tape that gets leaked out?
Yeah, I would do that for ratings. Yeah.
Not with me. I think I'll stay out of the limelight.
Well, I'm not doing it without your permission. Jeez. Anyway, how about you? I mean, is there going to be a Stephanie Murphy sex tape?
No,
and they still call them sex tapes, even though tapes are.
I know, even though it's not a tape.
Anachronism or whatever.
No, I mean, I don't think I want to do that. Like when I was younger, I think I was still developing my boundaries, and I would like talk about sex a lot, and I got sort of a reputation as like the podcaster who loves to talk about sex.
Yeah.
Now I still talk about it, but I definitely have better boundaries, and being in a porn is something that crosses a line for me that I don't want to cross personally. Right. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with erotic, like narrating erotic or romance books or whatever. But
you do a great job.
But that's different. That's not showing my body to a bunch of internet people.
Sure.
To
all
have
right.
them judge.
So how about this? I mean, are you willing to like make a sex tape? Let's say that.
No, I even feel uncomfortable about that because if it's out there, it can get out.
Right.
And just the amount of people that I'm not trying to say, oh, I'm so desired. I have all these stalkers and stuff. But I just have a feeling that, it's a valuable thing whenever any woman makes a sex tape, especially if they've never done it before or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to say I'm anything special, but if it's out there, it has the potential to fall into the wrong hands. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. All right.
But though I feel torn about this sometimes because, when I was 21, I spent every day. I went to the gym every day. Mm-hmm. I ate, low carb very religiously,
right.
And I had what I thought of at the time as I was in the best shape of my life. I was really ripped. I even had a 6-pack abs. I had low body fat. You could see every muscle. I looked great. I looked definitely very athletic. I look different now. I'm softer, but curvier. But I like my body fine now too. But the thing is, I never wanted to take any pictures of myself at that time when I had that really athletic body that I thought I was in the best shape of my life.
Sure.
Because I still had this idea in my mind that it still wasn't perfect. And I regret not taking pictures because I want to see what I looked like back then. I forget. I was always telling myself, I'll remember what I looked like in the mirror. And I do have some memories, but when you see yourself in the mirror every day, you don't remember it as well as you thought you would, at the time. So, I mean, I definitely have some memories, but I would like to compare my progress. Not that I think I would ever maybe want to get back to that point, but I would like to just have proof that I was there at some time in the past.
Sure. I can really relate to that. Like when I was kind of pre-military, like I was in really, really good shape for a while and, definitely made use of a lot of hotel gyms and everything. It was pretty nice. But
I've seen a few pictures of you. Yeah, you had a goatee.
There's points like that.
You looked very different. You almost look like a
Satan.
I wasn't going to say Satan.
Oh.
I was going to say something else.
What? What are you going to say?
You almost look like a gangster.
Gangster.
Well, okay. The picture I saw, you had this goatee.
Oh,
you
I
didn't
know
have
the
your
picture you're
glasses
talking about.
on.
Yep.
You were wearing like a sleeveless shirt with cut off sleeves and you had big muscular arms.
Yep.
And I want to say there might have been a gold chain in there.
No.
Maybe I'm just photoshopping that in my mind.
Yeah,
but...
that's the Jew gold that you're thinking. You're seeing around my neck. Yeah, no, I know that shot. That picture was actually, I think I had just woken up.
Like as though you'd been smoking weed or something.
Yep, never did that either. So,
or maybe just woken up.
Just waking up.
See, my mind is inserting all kinds of things.
Wow,
there,
yeah. I mean,
but anyway, so yeah, I don't want to have like nudes out there or porn movies or whatever for anybody to exploit. But on the other hand, I would like private records for my own purposes to just look at my fitness progress over time, over a long time span.
Sure.
Of 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense. But of course, you'd like to keep them perhaps, to yourself and not get stored up on the cloud.
No, yeah. There's these artists that take a picture of themselves every year on their birthday, and then some of them do it with like their son or daughter, where the kid is a newborn, and then like 40 years later, the parent is all old and the kid is 40, and you know. I mean, and those are really interesting. And some people do them nude or like shirtless or something like that, and it's artistic, but I guess I would kind of like to have something like that, but it's too late. I didn't start, and I'm 32 now, so.
Well, 32 looking amazing. That's what I'll say.
Thank you. Anyway, let's talk about something else.
Yeah, no, well, that's all right. So we got the Gawker bankruptcy out of the way. Couldn't happen to a bunch of nicer people. I mean, all right, just real quick. Yeah, people might lose their jobs over this, and I don't.
Well,
for most
losing
people,
a job where they're forced to write 20 articles a day, and slaving away in a little cubicle as an unpaid intern, cracking the whip on the content generation. Yeah,
I've seen some crazy statistics for some news sites where like some of them are doing 400 stories a day. Like, that is mind-boggling.
That's insane. How could you possibly, what
who
is there to write about?
That? Like, what?
Did they just, roll some dice and they're like, okay, today we're writing about wig manufacturing.
Here goes the crapshoot. Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, and because also I've reveled in, taken some joy, some schadenfreude, is that the word for it?
Yes.
In, when Mashable was really having some serious trouble as late. But, I feel bad. I don't want people to be on, I don't want anybody out there with a tin can and eye patch, saying, oh, please help me. I don't want anything like that happening to anybody. But at the same time, look, folks, when you're, if I was working for, Mashable or Gawker or something, and I was told, okay, here's this tweet. We need you to do a write-up about this tweet. I would be looking for another job because I'd be like, okay, no, there's no way that this model can last.
Well, it's kind of hard to get a job as an independent journalist,
right?
But
then I guess I'd have to be thinking about
your
other
own
work.
blog, I suppose. Yeah, anything's better.
Something.
Being poor and struggling is better than working for Mashable.
Yeah, for fuck's sake! I mean, writing shit like that.
Have you ever written a blog post on Zomia Offline Games about a tweet?
No, I think I've linked in.
Ever embedded a tweet?
Yes,
into your
I've
blog
embedded
post?
tweets, but I don't think I've ever written one about a tweet.
Right.
I think I did I might have done a story about Ethereum, and I put in the tweets where the person pretty much said, yeah, we want to program humanity and make them.
Oh well, that's
nice,
just
nice.
Evidence.
Right.
Don't take my word for it. See it yourself. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I already hated Ethereum in the first place. It wasn't like a tweet somehow. Well, anyway. All right.
So, Brian, the DAO is funded, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess they're crowdfunding things over.
Well, speaking of things that got funded and failed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Stitcher. Let's break right into this.
Okay, we're done talking about Ethereum. And we're talking about Stitcher, yes.
Well, I just want to say, I mean, Stitcher got a fund, their initial round was $25 million. That's how much they raised. And they just got sold off for $4.5 million. Now, look. People can say, well, it's still $4.5 million, still doing pretty good. And it's like, no,
where'd that other $20 million
fucking
go?
Failure. Okay, let's be real clear on that. And just like if the DAO, just because something gets a good funding, no guarantees of success.
So Stitcher, Stitcher's interesting because I remember years ago, like 5 years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
When I was doing Pork Therapy, my first podcast, people were like, "Oh, you got to get on Stitcher," and I'm like, who uses Stitcher? I've never listened to a podcast on Stitcher.
Yeah,
and it was like something where, the big deal about Stitcher was you could stream podcasts on it, right, without having to download them.
Yes,
but I'm going, who cares? I'd rather download the podcast.
Well,
that's a big deal.
Right. I agree with you. I would rather download everything. And I'm totally on board with that.
Yeah, local play.
Yeah.
And you don't have any interruptions.
Right.
I mean, when you're driving around in New Hampshire, there's areas where streaming doesn't always work because you're in the mountains.
Yeah, exactly. But you see, that's the key, is that, and I totally agree with you with what you're saying. But that's the key, is that most of the world's population lives in a city. And so, like, they don't run it. I mean, it's not most as in like 75-25. It's most as in like 51-49 or something like that, if I remember correctly. Like, I mean, yes.
Well, Agenda 21 isn't working then.
Duh. Yeah.
They're not doing a good job. They should reassess that at the Bilderberg meeting, which is going on right now, right?
Well, yeah, we're going to talk about that too. Or just a touch. But yeah, I forget what the statistics were, but it was something. I mean, it's not like a crazy amount of people live in the city than do outside of one. But also, I read a story that said statistically, millennials, millennials are now leaving the cities. Like they're just getting the hell out.
Good for them.
You're fucking right.
Might we be those millennials?
We are technically millennials.
Technically,
right
I feel
on.
too old to be a millennial, but definitely too young to be a Gen Xer.
Yeah,
so
well, that's what all the
generational
shit is nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
how could you collectivize an entire group of people born in a 20-year time span?
Right. I mean, really, the differentiator is people with experience and people without. That's all there really is. Anyway, I mean, and especially if millennials, quote, I hate stories that start with that phrase, but
because it's always going to say something bad about them.
Right, but if they're leaving the cities, like, guess what? They're going to have to start buying cars. So that whole bullshit that millennials don't buy cars, that's not going to be true anymore.
No, they don't buy anything according to the press. Yeah, they just rent everything and they're lazy, or they live with their parents.
Ridiculous. Anyway, off track a bit. But yeah, so Stitcher got bought by Midroll. But the thing is, most people do think, I mean, and in some ways, so I get it. It is very nice. Like, I use a streaming music service, right? And it's nice that my personal music is somewhere up in the cloud, and like I know it's kind of safe, and I can sort of access it from anywhere, no matter what device I'm using and all that stuff. Yeah, it's kind of nice, right? But
kind of safe.
Oh yeah, kind of safe, right? Yeah, it's somebody else's computer, really, at the end of the day. But I'll admit I like that. But what I don't really like streaming. I just like to know that there's access to it and that it's kind of somewhere else and that I can always sort of get to it. Streaming in and of itself, in concept, might be a terrible idea, but a lot of people think, oh, it just makes sense. It's way superior and all of this. And in cities, yeah, I get it. Now, I mean, Stitcher, I was just adding Sex and Science Hour to Stitcher the other day.
Go subscribe on
Stitcher,
iTunes. We're on iTunes, RSS. We started out on RSS, then we got on iTunes, now we're on Stitcher.
Yeah.
Moving up.
So now I don't really have a problem with Stitcher. I mean, have all these different methods of accessing podcasts. I think that's great. But I went to go do that, and I looked at my Stitcher numbers, and I was like, holy shit, there's a lot of people that use Stitcher.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like how many?
Well, I mean, it's not my...
Like what percent of your audience, maybe?
Percentage of audience... So, well, I mean, there was over 200 people subscribed via Stitcher. So, I mean, that's not, I mean, I have an audience, in the high thousands. So I don't know what the percentage exactly would be there, but I mean, that 200 people, that's a worthy, right. I mean, the average podcast only gets 100 listeners, yep. So I'm getting double the average podcast just on Stitcher alone. That's people I want to cater to. So anyway, so that's interesting. So what happened is that Midroll bought out Stitcher for $4.5 million. Now, this is interesting because I thought Deezer already bought out. That's another streaming music service. I thought Deezer already bought out Stitcher. So I don't know what exactly happened here. But regardless, Midroll bought out Stitcher for $4.5 million. That is the sign of a failing service, no question there. And this is, I'm curious how this is going to go. Some people are talking about the fact that Midroll is going to create some kind of platform like a guaranteed advertising platform, perhaps if you become exclusive on Stitcher. This might be becoming a thing.
Yeah.
And I, this is a move. I've talked about this on Sovereign Tech before. This is a move that kind of needs to happen. There needs to be somebody that takes podcasting seriously, and and just pushes forward the format.
It makes a good platform to push forward the format,
right?
Because iTunes, Apple doesn't give a shit about it.
Yeah, and like the metrics on Apple, people still try to go for them, but they're meaningless. They're bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
So many people try so hard to be number one on iTunes for discoverability and all this stuff, and it's just like, yeah, but you're really. That doesn't make any sense, because most people will say, well, those that use an iPhone, because that's the only way really to use it, right? With iTunes is to.
I think there's a desktop app for Macs.
Well, there's a desktop iTunes app, sure, but most people don't listen to podcasts on their desktop. I mean, they have that for Windows too, but my point being is that very few people, in the grand scheme of things, use iPhones. Okay, now people make the argument, well, but they're the ones that actually spend money, so they're the ones you actually want to reach. Oh, okay, whatever. All right, but the bottom line is that they're
not going to be spending money on podcasts.
Right, but yeah.
Everybody's used to, they've been getting them for free for 10 years. Why would they spend money on a podcast?
Well, that, and the advertisers on podcasts generally are almost all the same. Like it's Casper, it's Stamps.com, and it's all that. And it's like
NatureBox.
Yeah, right.
Squarespace.
Right. So, but the thing is that the second most used operating system out there, on the planet that you can, easily gauge is, next to Windows is Android. Next to Windows Desktop is Android. Why are you trying to get good numbers on a podcast or, on a podcast platform that doesn't appeal to 75% of smartphone users? That doesn't make any fucking sense at all.
Yeah, I have another sort of slightly alternative theory about this, actually.
Go for it.
So the way I consume podcasts doesn't rely on a centralized platform. Mm-hmm. Okay, I piecemeal assemble a curated assembly of podcast feeds, and I pull them from all different places, recommendations from friends. I don't really search any podcast databases.
Sure.
I've done that maybe a few times in my life, found a few podcasts, but it's rare. So I pull podcasts from just random experience and stuff, and I've gotten together a pretty good, group of podcasts that I regularly listen to.
Yep.
I feel like I don't need a platform for that. And I feel like anyone who creates, okay, this is not a feeling, never mind. I think that anyone who wants to create a centralized platform for like having podcasts on it and searching them and being able to listen to them wants to control the medium. And that's a problem because podcasts are like the internet. They should be free and decentralized.
Well, that, and the point you raise is something that a lot of very high-paid commentators have made. So, bravo. Yeah, you're right.
Well, why aren't I being a high-paid?
Damn right.
Could someone pay me highly for my comments?
That's right. But yeah, you're right. It is open and decentralized, and that is a concern. Is that Midroll would, with Stitcher.
Oh, of course Midroll wants to control podcasting as a sport. They want to be the podcast platform because they want to change the fundamental format of the medium, and they want to have ads in everybody's podcast, and they want to control what the ads are.
Right.
Now Midroll, I don't know if I can say this on the air, so if you think this is bad, we can cut it.
Do it.
But this is a little insider information. Midroll claims that they don't want to so Midroll was before they bought Stitcher, Midroll was a...
Yeah, I suppose we didn't say what Midroll was.
Yes, we should explain that. Midroll was an agency that brokers ad deals within podcasts. So you can sign up your podcast with Midroll. They will feed you ads to do live reads for on your show once a week or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you get paid from Midroll for doing those ads.
Right.
And then supposedly everybody profits, mostly Midroll.
Yes.
But anyway, they supposedly don't want to advertise on political, or they don't want to.
Well,
they don't want to have their ads on podcasts that are political, right?
Right. So I'll tell. I can quickly tell the story.
You know the story I'm going to tell, huh?
Because I've done advertising for Free Talk Live. Okay.
Do the do.
And I reached out to Midroll saying, hey, look, Free Talk Live gets like 1 million listeners a month. I mean, it's 250,000 a week. I mean, we're reaching, I mean, and it really actually it's more than 250,000. It's more like 500,000 a week. It's crazy numbers that should be a dream for anybody to reach out to. And they looked into it and they said, you're political and you're a daily show. We don't know what to do with that. Like they came out, they just said, "Well, no,
So part of it was a daily show, but I think a lot more of it was political.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Dan Savage's podcast is one of Mid-Roll's biggest and earliest clients,
Right.
as far as the podcasters
Right.
that they work with, who starts every show with a leftist rant sometimes about who he thinks you should vote for.
Yeah, it's all about the Democratic
It's
Party.
all about liberalism, like neoliberalism.
Yeah.
So to say that they don't work with political podcasts, that's bullshit.
No, right.
That they don't work with non-left political podcasts, maybe.
Yeah.
But the Daily Show, I could see maybe their platform just isn't meant for that because there aren't that many daily podcasts. But
Right.
I mean, find a way to work with it. Take just the Saturday Show or something, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think they fed you bullshit when you
Maybe.
contact them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tempted to try reaching out to them with Sovereign Tech. Maybe I just want to see what they say.
Oh, they won't know what the fuck to do with Sovereign Tech,
well, right.
especially if they listen to this show
Yeah.
where we're talking shit about them.
But yeah,
Wait a couple weeks.
yeah. But I mean, that is concerning because then, effectively what that message is that if Mid-Roll, in Mid-Roll's own words, if you are a political podcast, you are not a part of the program. And so if Mid-Roll tries to become this big shit, if you're,
if you don't fit their approved political agenda, then you will not be featured on their platform.
Right.
And that's what I mean about trying to control the industry. Well, you could hardly call it an industry, but trying to control the sport. I'll call podcasting a sport. I think that's the best analogy.
Sure. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Amazon's trying to do this. There's other companies that I think are really trying to take up this charge. But I will say straight out, I think that Mid-Roll is going to fail if they don't allow for, a political podcast of any kind. And when I say political, that includes anarchism. Not that anarchy deals in the electoral political system, but it's still an ideology of sorts that is relevant.
Well, it's like baldness is a hair color.
Right. Yeah. There you go.
Right.
Damn right.
And you are bald,
I
Brian.
love it. As bald as it gets.
As a cue ball.
That's right. So anyway, let's shift gears a little bit here. Stitcher's an app, right? It's an app platform. So let's talk about apps. A story came out this week that apparently nobody's downloading apps anymore. At all, that the entire app economy.
You told me about this, and the first thing I said was it's because they ran out of space on their phone.
Yeah,
that's why I don't download apps. I have a set number of apps that I have space for.
Yeah.
The rest is taken up by podcasts.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, the metrics were insane. The amount of proof laid out, the amount of research as far as based upon what you could look at, were crazy. Year over year, they were showing all the comparisons. I saw all the numbers that mattered to me. Nobody's downloading apps anymore.
Now, are they giving this a name like the bee colony collapse disorder? Oh, is this app collapse?
They're saying the app boom is over. They're not giving it the app apocalypse or apocalypse.
Well, there's a simple apocalypse. I love that. Okay, that is the title of your show.
Yeah.
There's a simple solution. They could make phones that have more storage space.
Well, I agree. I mean, that's part of the thing is that the app bloat is crazy.
Oh, the bloatware is just insane. And yes, I know you could solve that by doing cyanogen mod.
Right.
Yeah, I just haven't done that yet.
Yeah. Though, admittedly, I guess...
but the apps, they get insane. You know what I'm saying? To me, I don't need an app for something that I can do in my browser, especially if there's a nice-looking mobile site. And I just don't want all these apps that I might use once every 6 months or once every year.
Yeah.
Just shitting up my phone with their space hogging tendencies.
Right. Yeah. Now, apparently,
I don't need the Starbucks app to the one time I get a gift card once a year. I don't need the Hotel Tonight app once I'm trying to find a deal in a hotel when I'm stranded once a year in some bumblefuck town, like.
Yeah. And maybe that's, potentially that could be what's happening is people might just be using their web browser to do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Snapchat, Uber, and there were a couple others that are not falling prey to this. They are still getting ridiculous growth.
Oh God.
And all that,
so
which
I'm
will only
not
last.
on Snapchat. I feel like maybe I should get on it.
No.
Do you use it?
No, I've very firmly planted my feet in the ground saying that I will never ever get a Snapchat account. It is fucking mindless and pointless. And just.
But how is that different than Instagram? Oh,
significantly. Like, I mean, Snapchat is. The idea is that what you post, is not there for posterity. It's only up there 24 hours and, supposedly and all this stuff. And I mean, like Instagram, you can actually, in some ways, you can kind of create an interesting collage. I mean, there's a real art to Instagram. As to where to Snapchat, there's no art because there's nothing for posterity. There's nothing to last.
And that's why I don't use Instagram either, because I'm such an auditory person. I just don't give a shit about visual stuff, and everybody else focuses on that.
Sure, absolutely. And you get this.
I'm so not artistic. I don't know what filters to apply to make myself look more beautiful.
Right, and but it's pathetic that, like with Snapchat, that everybody's saying this is where the new place to advertise and all this stuff. And they have Snapchat video and all this.
Oh.
And it's all just bullshit. Anytime, like Facebook Live, now Facebook Live is the new thing. When people I don't think people realize, look, when somebody starts telling you this is the new platform to advertise on, first off, that news is 6 months behind.
6 months ago.
Yeah, it's 6 months like behind. And they're only telling you that because they're trying to promote their fucking platform. Like, like all these, talk about crazy metrics, all these metrics coming out that, Facebook Live, you can reach this many people and all this stuff. I guarantee you Facebook is funding those quote unquote studies and research and all this crap. They're fudging those numbers and getting them out there to tell you that this matters because they want you to use it. Facebook Live is crap. It's not going to go anywhere, especially when, like, the feature with that is that you get alerted anytime somebody, goes live and all this stuff.
Anytime one of your friends goes live. And I've gotten a few of them. I've never watched one because I find that could get annoying.
Oh, yeah. It's
right?
Absolutely.
And I would never do it because I'd be so scared that I'd fuck something up and then it would go out to every fucking Facebook contact I have and I'd be so embarrassed.
Yeah, no, it's just the whole Facebook Live thing is madness. And like the fact, it reminds me because like they really, really push it. Like they make it show up higher in your feed. They give you a notification about it, all this stuff. And it's like, well, if it was really that great, Facebook, you wouldn't have to do any of that. Like you wouldn't have to algorithmically, push it or do whatever bullshit you're doing. Anyway, so with the app thing, I think what's interesting is that at Google I/O, just a couple weeks ago, they, Google came out with this feature that allowed you to pretty much stream apps. Like that's the basic idea, is that when you need to do something and a specific app has that feature, you don't have to download the app anymore. Android will just kind of run it live, and stream it effectively. And then it does that, and then it does, you're done. You don't have to install the app anymore.
That's nice, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that kind of highlights sort of what's going on here with this apocalypse, is that, maybe they realize people don't want to or don't need to do that, don't want to do that,
so
whatever.
Then how are they is it going to be like a Kindle Unlimited model to pay the app makers?
Well, most apps are free,
yeah, a lot of them are free, but not all. And like, maybe you're right. I don't know.
Well, what I think is going to happen is that this is going to be like Amazon Unlimited, or I mean, not Unlimited, Amazon Underground, where Amazon gives you all the apps for free. So you're kind of right, I think. Amazon gives you all their apps for free, but and Amazon pays the app developers based upon the amount of time that everything's used in. I really, that whole Google app streaming thing, I think is they're trying to answer what the success that Amazon's having with Amazon Underground, with that alternative store. So yeah, people aren't installing apps. I think that's true. I think people are running with their default apps that just come on their phone, which is why manufacturers, it's very lucrative for them to do deals where they pre-install apps. That's a big part of that. I never use the
bloatware, like the Sprint Zone and all that shit.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
There's this stupid football app that I can't uninstall. It's
it's
so
the NFL one from Verizon.
I hate football.
Which is crazy because you're not even on Verizon anymore.
No, I'm not even on Verizon, and I hate fucking football. I can't deal with this.
We'll go over how to fix that problem later. But I think what's going to happen is that it's going to be the same thing where Google is going to become the, app creators are going to end up becoming employees of Google, through this.
Yeah, just like Kindle with Amazon.
Right, with everything that Amazon does. Yeah, I think that's what's going to end up happening in the end
there's
here.
just few companies that are just like giant blobs, and they're going to all the talented people.
Right, exactly.
Well, nobody's going to absorb my podcast. I'm telling you that right now. Nobody's going to absorb you either, Brian.
No,
we're
definitely
independent.
Not. We are as independent as they come.
I would say even Audible isn't going to absorb me because I do work for Audible, but they don't. I mean.
Well,
I don't know them anything. I mean,
yeah. So anyway, well, a couple more stories I do want to touch on before we get into our main story for this week, or maybe we'll just skip the main story. I keep pushing it off, but whatever.
What's the main story?
It's about Pavlok.
Oh no, do we have to do that?
All right, yeah. We'll do it. But Walmart now is, and this is interesting. We just brought up Amazon. And, I think people are I'm just starting to hear it on other podcasts now, where people are on other tech podcasts, where people are saying, whoa, Amazon is the fucking company. Like Amazon they're the tech giant. They're the one that everybody needs to watch out for. Finally, people are starting to realize this. Of course, how long ago did I say that?
Listening to Sovereign Tech?
We're on episode 179. I think the first time I talked about Amazon was episode like 62. It was well over 2 years ago.
Yeah. I remember that.
Anyway, Walmart is apparently going to be working with Uber and Lyft and a company called Deliv. I don't know what the hell that is.
What?
Yeah, but they are going to, now Walmart is going to offer to deliver your groceries to you. Using Uber, Lyft, or this other one, Deliv. Then they're piloting it in Denver and Phoenix. Which is interesting on Denver's part, because I'll give Walmart a little bit of credit. At least they're going to try it out in a place that snows, that actually gets weather. As to where, like, most of these startups and most of these companies, they're so full of shit because they never actually test the stuff out in parts of the world that actually experience seasons. Valley. Right. And so, I mean, I don't know what the fuck these startups think half the time. I guess they just think that, well, everybody's going to eventually just move to California. We're just all going to live in California.
No.
And, oh man, or Texas and whatever.
No.
Yeah, thanks. No, thanks, but no thanks. So go ahead.
So this is interesting because, so recently we went to England.
Yes.
And we saw these people all over the place in the city we were in. And they had these large looking like pizza box delivery backpacks on their backs, and they were riding bikes, and it said Deliveroo. And now I looked up what Deliveroo was, and it's basically like Uber or Lyft, but for food delivery.
Sure.
So these people are independent contractors who ride their bikes around and deliver takeout food to you.
Yeah. So, like, these kind of services exist. Like, there's TaskRabbit. There's some others where they do all kinds of wild things.
Yeah, and it was only in the UK for at the time.
Right.
They said they were, like, looking into, or the guy was from New York that started it, but he somehow went to England and started it there.
Sure.
So I guess he couldn't get takeout or something like that, or the delivery drivers were bad.
Right.
So the concept is there, and it makes sense. And there's a couple of companies that do stuff that's sort of similar, but not for groceries. It's more for restaurant meals.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with this idea. If you want groceries delivered, I mean, whatever, go for it. If that's your
But the problem
shtick.
is, like, how are you going to make that profitable, right? Because, like, I mean, a grocery trip could be a significant haul, and also, like, I don't know about you, but I like to feel the avocados before I pick them out. Is somebody going to feel my melons for me when I go grocery shopping? I know, I just said that for a fact. But, like, are you going to be able to pick out the best produce? That's the problem,
Right. Yeah, I see all kinds of issues with this. I bring this up before. Not that I necessarily believe in predictive programming, which is the idea that in fiction and in entertainment and all that, like, ideas that companies or governments are trying to ram down your throat and bring to you in the near future, they display it first to get you used to it in fiction. I don't subscribe to that idea that happens often, if ever. But there was a movie that I think was a total test bed for a whole lot of companies and perhaps even governments' ideas for what they wanted the future to be. And the movie was The Sixth Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I never saw
from
that.
the 90s. It's a great movie. I love the film. It's about a clone and all. I mean, you get 2 Schwarzeneggers for one. I mean, it's fucking great. So it was an awesome flick, but a lot of this stuff was in there to where you had, and I've talked about it on Sovryn Tech before, where you have these, like Samsung's releasing refrigerators with Android on them. You had programmable, touchscreen refrigerators in that movie. You had deliverable groceries in that movie. Like when you ran out of milk, the refrigerator would tell you and you'd press it and it would arrive and all that stuff.
It's like the worst smart technology.
Well, the thing is that, if that was a test bed, I mean, people's reaction largely to that movie is they didn't really care for it that much. But also is that most people, on the street talking about that thought that was a terrible idea. For that, like it didn't take, and I don't think it's going to take now. I think a lot of the stuff is going to fall. What I really think is going on, I mean, you have Walmart and Uber. This is what's important with the story, is you have Walmart and Uber working together. And I think what that highlights is that they are trying to keep Amazon from becoming dominant. And that's the real story here.
Yeah.
Of
they
what's going on.
came together over a common love of the police and the state, and they,
right.
And a common hatred of Amazon.
Yeah.
It's a match made in heaven, really.
Yeah. So because I've said before on Sovryn Tech that Uber is really the only competition for Amazon. Apple and Google and all that, they're all eons behind. So Uber is the real competition there. And Walmart is certainly in the retail space, in the physical brick and mortar space, is the competition for Amazon. So this is definitely, 2 companies joining up to take on the big boy. No doubt about that. So that's the real story there. Delivering groceries, I can see kind of the appeal to some degree, but largely, yeah, I think it's a fail, because if you actually care about your health, you need to be there, being involved in your food. And I think it's a good thing for people to be involved in food. Sometimes you don't always
go strictly with your grocery list either.
No, right. Yeah, I mean, that's another issue, too, is that, like, wait a second, what about, grocery stores are probably going to have a problem. I mean, Walmart doesn't give a shit because, their stores are absolutely lifeless. But there's a lot of stores that, lifeless as in, like, there's no heart.
Well, I will say, in Mexico, Walmarts have nice produce, and they're not lifeless at all. They have like music in there and stuff. And
yeah, well, definitely a different like market style that they have to run with
different.
there.
Yeah, for sure. But they have local produce there, and that's the difference. I mean, I think in Walmart supercenters in the U.S., the food is trucked in from far away. It's not necessarily local food. I could be wrong about that, but it doesn't strike me as local food there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
it would be the same thing with Amazon.
No, it's going to be a problem because, like, a lot of stores, like they really make a lot of their money off of their presentation, and if your groceries are getting delivered, presentation's out the window in a very real sense.
Well, then you get a good website.
Yeah, well, you better have a really good one. I mean, I don't know. I
Virtual reality, you can reach in and pluck the avocado.
That might be the answer right there. But anyway, let's all right. One last story that I do want to touch on this because it's kind of relevant here. So this shocked me. Now, I realize I've just kind of self-analyzed and realized that I've talked a lot about other tech podcasts in this episode, I think. And maybe even I do that a lot because I listen to a lot of them. But anyway, on Tech News Today, which is the daily show that the Twit Network, This Week in Tech, puts out there, the other night, they were talking about, I was stunned at this, they were talking about the Bilderberg meeting. Okay.
I'm stunned too.
Yeah, which if you don't know what the Bilderberg, bottom line, Bilderberg meeting or the Bilderberg group and all this stuff, they've been having these meetings. It's a bunch of world leaders and corporate leaders and all this stuff all coming together since like the 50s. They do it every once in a while and it's all very secretive supposedly, when in reality it's just a dinner club. I mean, it's not, it's fucking meaningless.
Well, there's all these people who think they're plotting like world domination and
right.
I haven't seen any evidence of that.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can really bring up is that one of the originators of the group, of the meeting, he was interviewed about it and asked about it, and this was way back, like this is back in the 60s. And somebody asked him, it's like, some people say that you people are getting together, to kind of change the world and, I forget the exact words now that I think about it. But it kind of made the claim that, you're trying to take over the world or create a, one world way and all this stuff. And the guy actually stopped and said, he's like, well, that's not exactly unfair. Okay. I mean, it's so, he's honest, you know what I mean, for what they're trying to do, but I mean, whatever, but so I was shocked though that Tech News Today was actually talking about it, because some people who get, all hot and bothered about all this Bilderberg stuff, say that, well, the mainstream media doesn't talk about it and blah, blah, blah. Well, I mean, now they do, whether or not they didn't in the past. Now they certainly do. And they were talking about how, maybe some listeners of the show, take the Bilderberg thing very seriously. I never have. If you do, well, pay attention to the fact that supposedly, hundreds, if not thousands of employees from Google have been attending these meetings. And so if you love Google, but you hate the Bilderberg group, but anyway, I think, it's just like, so what?
Yeah, so what? I mean, what's to stop, powerful people from getting together and having a party? Like, who knows what they talk about? I mean, it's probably some sinister things, I suppose, but how likely is that to be put into practice? I mean,
what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
I don't and here's the other thing. Here's the other point that I say, so what to, is that if Tech News Today is talking about it, and like people go to these events and activists, quote unquote, and they try to expose who's there and all this stuff. And it's like, well, as far as knowing who's there, you already know, some of the names that are already there, like Palantir and stuff like that are openly there. That's bad enough. I don't need to know everybody that's there. I guess my point is I don't get it. Like, if people are admitting to that the Bilderberg, meetings are a thing, why do you need to show up there? You are wasting your fucking life, I think, being there.
Right. I guess, is anyone surprised that Peter Thiel and people from Google are hanging out and socializing with Hillary Clinton? No.
Right. I mean,
I'm not surprised about that.
Yeah, where are the
people?
people?
They were doing that anyway without the Bilderberg meeting. It's just a convenient opportunity for them to all get together and feel like they're special and part of a club. And, they get the state to pay for a lot of security, and because they don't want to be bothered, by the people who think they're trying to heroically document everything. And
yeah, this stuff, okay, fine. They don't tell you what comes out of it, but nobody tells you what comes out of a CFR meeting either. There's plenty of this shit to go around.
Secret meetings that you don't know about that go on in government and industry. And
I don't understand. I don't get the point to why people want to rally in front of this stuff. Because people are telling you it's out there. And all this is well, we inspire them, we force them to have to talk about it. It's no, I don't think Tech News Today brought it up because some activists were, highlighting bullshit. I don't know. Anyway,
well, the thing is, they'll never be able to, unless they have a person on the inside, which it seems incredibly unlikely that you can possibly get that. You'll never be able to know exactly what goes on there or hear the conversations. So what's the point, right? It's all just speculation as to what they're talking about, right? I think it'd probably be interesting to be a fly on the wall at one of those things.
Yeah, sure.
And not that means that whatever their grandiose things they're talking about, they can actually do, but it'd be interesting to hear what they talk about, but you can't hear what they're talking about because their security there is so tight and nobody's big enough to be a mole or whatever. And if they were, they'd be discovered, right?
Yeah.
So forget about it, right?
Yeah, I think it's just a dinner club, and it gets a bunch of people together to think what they're doing is
That's
important.
why it's called Bilderberger, because you can build your own hamburger. They have this buffet station.
Right. Yeah, because the things that are actually that have the potential to change individuals' lives, and that could really actually change the world and the way that much of it operates, I know isn't happening in those rooms because I know what those projects are. They're just not a part of it. So anyway, enough of that crap. You want to talk about, there's so many things out in the open that should scare the fuck out of people. One of them being our lead story that we will talk about now, and that is Pavlok.
Oh, speaking of sinister plans to dominate
this is crazy.
The world.
Yeah, you don't need the Bilderberg group to know that, wow, we have a lot of work to do elsewhere. Okay. Like, this is insane. And I thought that this was dead. Because I thought that Pavlok, I heard about it, speaking of This Week in Tech, I saw it, somebody brought it in on This Week in Tech like a year or two ago. And what, I figured it's like, okay, well, it's a Kickstarter, it probably didn't go anywhere. Nobody's talked about it anymore. But then they were on Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Just a couple weeks ago on the last episode there.
Like, I kind of wonder when that was filmed. Maybe it was filmed a while ago.
Yeah, so maybe it's dead.
Maybe. After the Shark Tank, I mean, the sharks were absolutely brutal to this guy. Mark Cuban was literally calling him like a huckster and like a charlatan.
Yeah.
Because he was claiming that there were all these studies to support his product. And yeah, there are studies about behaviorism and operant conditioning,
right,
which are mostly done in animals, and people try to apply them to people.
Yeah.
And yeah, it works on people, but it's brutal and inhumane.
Right. Well, that's the thing. A lot of these,
there's no studies specifically on Pavlok.
Right.
And that's what he was claiming, and that's what Cuban got upset about.
Yeah, it was because he was trying to apply the science to what he developed.
And then the asshole guy got an offer from Kevin O'Leary, and he's like, "Yeah, I would take." He tried to neg him or something. He's like, "Yeah, I would take an offer from anyone except him." And Kevin said, "Fuck you, get out of here."
That was great.
And he left with his head hanging.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's part of the initial issue here is that, and I mean, well, let's describe what Pavlok is. Pavlok is this, it's a wristband that you wear that will...
It's an electric shock band.
Yeah, that will shock you, and it shocks you pretty good. Like, I remember Leo Laporte was wearing it. He's like, holy shit. Like, I mean, it really, kind of bothered him. And so pretty much whenever you're doing a habit, and usually what happens is somebody else will control the other end of it. It'll be a friend or something. And when they see you doing something that is not, I don't know, acceptable or outside of the parameters of what you want, and against the habit you're trying to develop, you will get shocked. Like that's the idea.
So they're creating a mini Milgram experiment in everybody's house.
Right. And the guy that created it, supposedly he hired somebody to come slap him in the face, come to his house and slap him in the face anytime he did something that was outside of the habit he was trying to develop. Or outside of the habits.
He was a nail biter. That's what he said.
Oh,
right?
That's right. He was a nail biter.
He said he bit his nails.
Yeah, anytime he went to go do that, smack.
He said he broke this habit in 4 days or something like that with this.
Because he hired this guy to hit him
in the face. I mean, that's one way to do it, but like, Jesus fucking Christ, how twisted is that?
Yeah.
Like, how much have you internalized being punished by, like, all the operant conditioning that society puts on you from school, from church, from parents? Like, what did his parents do to him growing up? They probably slapped him every time he did something that they didn't like. Right. No wonder he bites his nails. He's probably nervous as shit.
Yeah.
That his parents are going to come and smack him again. Like, this guy, I feel sad for him. Like,
sure.
I hate him because he made this product. I don't hate him, but like, I hate the fact that he made this product, this shit product that I think is awful and reinforces a social norm that just needs to go away.
Like, it reinforces the punishment paradigm.
Incredibly inhumane, shit product. I hate the product. I don't hate the guy, but I feel bad for him, and I think he's got some serious psychological issues. And yeah, it's just really sad to see that so many people think that's normal, like, and would even like sign up to buy a device like that shocks you. Now, the thing that I wonder, like, immediately it made me think of, and they even call it aversion therapy.
Right.
Immediately it made me think of these poor gay kids that their parents find out they're gay and they send them to these training centers where they make them watch gay porn, and then they shock them with electric shocks and horrible things like that, and they drown them. And like, how long until some mother, some Christian mother who knows that her son is gay or daughter is gay buys one of these devices, and every time she thinks he's having impure thoughts, she gives him a little shock, and he can't take it off because he lives under her roof.
Yeah.
Like, this could be used for such evil. Aversion therapy has actually been banned in some states.
Good.
By the governments of those states.
Laws are not good, but I appreciate that
gay
people...
aversion therapy specifically.
Yeah.
But, that makes a statement about the so-called technology, which even calling this technology, it's updating a Stone Age idea with a modern device.
Well, it's crazy that, like, in the way this guy talked, actually, on Shark Tank. I mean, there's a link in the show notes where people can find out more.
I got the worst. You know how some people you just get a bad feeling from?
Yeah.
I saw him speak, and I just got the chills. I don't know.
Well, the bottom line is that he was saying, we can change the world. He was pretty much saying we can fix people. Mm-hmm. And whenever I hear that sort of shit, it's the same crap that comes out of companies like Cambridge Genomics and all that. Like, you are a failure and you need to be repaired. Like that. That's kind of that's sort of the idea that gets pushed out with this sort of thing.
Yep,
is that there's something wrong
broken,
with you.
You're
broken.
We need to sell you our solution to fix you.
Yeah, and we're going to shock you like a slave, like an animal, until you act right.
Why don't we just go ahead and put out the message that you are just fine the way you are, even if you bite your nails. And the way to change that habit is self-love and self-acceptance, not by shocking yourself or hiring someone to
and
slap
giving
you
yourself
in
some
the face.
empathy. Absolutely. Okay, whoa, here we go. Live read.
Okay.
So I want to tell you about something. If you want to actually put your money in a good place and not with some bullshit like Pavlok, I want you to check out the real deal, the goods, okay? And that is at Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. If you want to get your hands on some precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, palladium, all the good stuff, and perhaps you want to get it with Bitcoin, you want to go to Roberts & Roberts.
Yeah. I have a reminder on my calendar every month to buy a little bit of precious metal. Mm-hmm. And, Roberts & Roberts is going to be my go-to from now on.
Absolutely.
I don't always have an extra money to do it, but when I do, I will go to Roberts & Roberts.
Damn right. Yeah. I mean,
but the great thing is you can use Bitcoin or you can use fiats. And
right.
They'll take either, and they'll ship it to you really fast. And so it's a great habit to get into, and you don't need anyone to slap you in the face or shock you. Just
Not
put
at
a
all.
little reminder on your calendar to yourself. Buy, an ounce of silver every month. You can afford $15 for an ounce of silver every month, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and they'll tell you. I mean, you can call them. I mean, you can talk to the people at Roberts & Roberts. They'll tell you. They'll give you actionable things, to do with what you purchased from them. I mean, precious metals are still actionable. There's still, there's still some play.
If you don't know where to start, you can
them.
call them on the phone, and
Absolutely.
they'll give you some help in a very nice, unbiased way.
Absolutely. So give them a call. Tell them the Stallion sent you, but you can go to gold.zog.ninja. Okay.
Hi, Tim. The Stallion sent me.
Believe me, he's a listener to the show. He'll know exactly who you're talking about. So go get it. Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. All right, let's get back to the show. Pixel, I'm being chased by assassin bots. I need an exit. Pixel!
Brian Sovryn, come with me if you want to leave.
Who are you?
I'm Adelaide. I'll tell you more later. Get in the vehicle.
Get in a car with a scantily clad and beautiful woman? Guess it's been my first choice before. Let's go.
First Choice.
It is time for First Choice, where I cover the stories that get sent in to me through the various channels available. Of course, go to contact.zog.ninja to be able to get in touch with the show. And, yeah, boy, get your hands on some of this stuff from Roberts & Roberts. Gold.zog.ninja, just in case you missed the URL there to check it out. So, of course, joined by the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy for this week's episode. And I've got a doozy here that somebody sent me. Actually, it's a twofer. But they're both relative, and they're both very interesting. And both of these stories actually dovetail off of, maybe it was last week's episode, where I was talking about Asus is coming out with a robot, a $600 robot called Zenbo.
Yeah.
And my concern is that, when you have, or one of my concerns, I had a multitude of them. But if the idea is that your kid kind of develops a rapport or a relationship with this robot, like the robot tells jokes and has conversations and does all kinds of fun, wacky things. And yet at the same time, the business model of most, smartphone and a lot of just technology manufacturers today, relies upon you buying a new device every year or 2 years. You're going to create a real, talk about operative conditioning. You're going to create a real problem where I think kids are going to think of relationships as very short-term things and things that you can just throw away at the end of the day. Or you're going to create very sad situations where, Zenbo died and sorry, nobody's around to repair them anymore, right?
Oh gosh. Yeah, that is sad. It's almost like replacing a pet. Like they anthropomorphize these robots a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and pets, you get a pet, you spend $600 on a dog. I mean, that might be cheap.
Boy.
What
is the world coming to, Brian?
Well, but I'm just saying that a dog will last you years, I mean, decades even, perhaps, right? Anyway. So somebody sent me this story, and it's a good one because it talks about that. It talks about a real life case of exactly what I described. And I remember this. I remember when this came out, what we're about to talk about here, but I don't remember, I didn't know there was so much history around it by now. But it's Aibo, A-I-B-O. And this is a dog insanely popular in Japan, it was like the late 90s, I think, when it came out. Okay. And there's still people love their Aibos. And I'm going to read this little bit of story here from Business Insider. In Japan, robot dogs are for life and death. And this is from February 2015, by the way. Incense smoke wafts through the cold air of the centuries-old Buddhist temple as a priest chants a sutra praying for the peaceful transition of the souls of the departed. It is a funeral like any other in Japan, except that those being honored are robot dogs. Lined up on the altar.
So Japanese.
Oh, yeah. Lined up on the altar, each wearing a tag to show where they came from and which family they belong to. Yeah, the devices are Aibos, the world's first home-use entertainment robot equipped with quote-unquote artificial intelligence and capable of developing its own personality. Quote, I believe owners feel they have souls as long as they are with them, end quote, said Nobuyuki Norimitsu, who's 59, who heads an electronic repair company specializing in fixing vintage products. Sony rolled out the first generation Aibo in June 1999 with the initial batch of 3,000 selling out in just 20 minutes. People were very excited about this. Despite the hefty 250,000 yen, that maybe about $2,000 back then, price tag. Over the following years, more than 150,000 units were sold in numerous iterations, ranging from gleaming metallic silver versions to round-faced cub-like models. The dog came with an array of sensors, a camera, and a microphone. The final generation could even talk. By 2006, Sony was in trouble. Its business model was broken, and it was facing fierce competition from rivals in all fields. The Aibo, an expensive and somewhat frivolous luxury, had to go.
Oh no! They put down the dog.
they had to put him down. Sorry, son, we got to put him down. The company kept its Aibo clinic, quote unquote, open until March 2014, but then politely told,
like instead of taking him to the vet, you take him to the
Aibo clinic.
Oh, this is so sad. This is tearjerker.
Yeah, but then politely told dedicated and loving owners that they were on their own. For Hideko Mori, 70 years old, that nearly spelled
there's
disaster.
Nothing else we can do for him.
Right. Well, now I'll give a little bit of credit, okay, for their last model to have come out in 2006, for Sony to be supporting them for 6 years after the fact. In the tech world, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll give Sony a little bit of credit for that. Good job on at least supporting them, for a good long while after the fact. And as I said with Zenbo, and as I've said many times, there is no written law. There's no ethical standard to where these companies have to support things forever. I agree, it doesn't exist. But then
no, but it's so shitty. Like it's a dog.
Well, right. I mean, it's a robot dog that was designed to develop its own personality and all this stuff, and people are freaking out.
How is that much different than a real dog?
That's a great question.
What if your vet just said, like, oh, sorry, we're not supporting that model anymore?
That's a great question. Yeah. So,
just have a little, it would do so much for them in the PR department and in people's hearts and minds to just have a little department that can work on the dog, like even after they officially stop supporting, until the last one is retired.
That's the thing. If there is some kind of ethical precept that I want companies to go by with a lot of this stuff, the Zenbo, Aibo, all of this different shit, okay, is that, the consumer is what you're supposed to care about. Like if you're going to have a really successful business, a business that lasts a long time, of course, most businesses don't care about anything other than their quarterly returns. Or like, all right, do we look at this quarter? And that's all they care about. They don't think 10 years down the road. If that's, I want them to care about the consumer, like, because I'm a consumer. And so, it's the platinum rule, treat others as they want to be treated. I think most consumers want to be treated well. And so I would like to be treated well. And having this release cycle where something I spent hundreds of dollars on that I worked on that's going to, shit the bed in a year or two, that's not treating me well. That goes against what I want out of products. And so should I not buy them? Sure. But then most consumers don't even think of, they're not educated consumers, and they don't think about the fact that, isn't that kind of crazy that I lay down hundreds of dollars and the thing only lasts me a year? So I'm bringing it to light, but I want to talk a little bit more about the Aibo here. This is a very interesting story. And we left off with the guy, Hideko Mori, 70 years old. Mori has had her Aibo, it's a woman, for around 8 years. She enjoys the conversations she has with it and thinks it is far more convenient than a real puppy. Quote, he doesn't require feeding and he doesn't pee. Actually, he does pee by cocking his leg, making an indescribably beautiful tinkling sound. But she said nothing actually comes out. So it emulates pretty well, right?
Wow.
Yeah. Quote, I never thought there was a limit to his life, end quote. But in May last year, her beloved Aibo, whose name is simply Aibo, became immobile.
Oh.
Quote, I emailed a former Sony worker on behalf of the dog saying, quote, do I have no choice but to die like this because I can't walk, end quote, she said. So she pretended like it was the dog sending it, and she sent it off.
Yeah, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
The engineer introduced her to A-Fun, a company that employs former Sony engineers who fixed her machine in 2 months. Quote, I was so happy to see him back to health and at home, end quote, she said. Hiroshi Funabashi, 61, who supervises repairs at A-Fun, said troubled Aibo owners think of him more as a doctor than an engineer. Quote, the word repair,
right.
the word repair doesn't fit here, end quote, he told AFP at his home in Kasama, north of Tokyo. Scattered around him are dozens of Aibos sent in with problems owners typically describe as aching joints. Quote, for those who keep Aibos, they are nothing like home appliances. It's obvious they think their robotic pet is a family member, end quote, he said.
Do they have like a cover, like does it look like a robot or does it look like a dog?
It looks like a dog, but I mean, it definitely has like kind of it has a robotic look.
Okay.
It has it has the shape of a dog, but it definitely has a robotic look. Okay. They're not putting fake fur on it or anything.
Oh, that's what I was wondering. Yeah.
Yeah. So bottom line, this is a real thing. This is something that's happening. Okay. Because companies are selling, products that are designed to, pull on your heartstrings, and then they are no longer supporting that. Like they are trying to.
That's just cruel.
I kind of feel like it is.
Yeah. Again,
like I said, companies are not required to support things after they get them out the door, unless maybe they say so that they will. That's a different story. I get all of that, but I think this is fucked up. I think
it's fucked up too.
Yeah.
They are playing on the human wetware that makes us social and want to bond with other creatures.
Right.
And other intelligences or whatever. Yeah, and then when you give a human something to bond with that can't bond back, that's a problem. And then also to just not support it so that one day it just cuts you off. And
well, this kind of does bond back. Like it talks like it does. These things are designed to. AI, they're using the term loosely. But it does develop somewhat of a personality, and I'm guessing that's based upon your interactions with it. So, we're getting into definitions.
But it's not bonding with you, though. That's the thing. You're bonding with it, and it's learning what you like to make you bond with it more. Yes. But it's not bonding with you. That's what I'm saying.
Sure,
it's a one-sided. Like with two human beings, they both have that bonding capacity, unless they're maybe like.
Yep, I get your point.
Very rare, lacking empathy kind of people. But most humans can bond with each other. So, like, if you have a spouse or a brother or sister or a parent or whatever, or a child, you can bond with that human. And eventually they'll probably die, and that's really sad. But it's a human experience you have. With an AI or a machine, it's just different. Like a human and a machine can never have really the same relationship. You can get close, you can sort of copy it in some ways, but you can never really have the same relationship that two humans can have.
That may change. You're right. It
can get very close, but I'm saying it's going to approximate it, but it's not going to be quite the same because there's only the one-way bonding.
Right. Yeah, I'm saying like if AI, becomes like a thing, like a real AI, to where a machine is thinking like a human, then I don't see why it can't be a two-way street at that point. But right now, you're absolutely right. I get your point.
We're far off from that technology.
Okay. Well, that's people have varying opinions on that. But I understand. But I got the emails over the past week of people saying to me, that what I had said about Zenbo, that people are going to develop relationships and all this stuff with this, was crazy, that humans are not that stupid, that they can't attach to these robots. Regardless if it's a two-way street or a one-way street, people are attaching with these fucking robots. Like, I mean, this is very real what's happening in Japan.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you can say, well, it's all you can psychologize it and say, well, it all comes out of the fact that they didn't get enough love from their parents and all this stuff. And so they're transposing, trying to get some kind of love out of something.
No, it's an absolutely natural reaction. It's like having a friend. Like, that's not pathological.
Sure. Right. Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of the thing. And my real concern here is that I don't necessarily think there's a problem with selling a product like Aibo or even Zenbo, and that plays with the kid and all this stuff. I just have the problem of, I don't think companies give a shit about what that does, to human psychology, what that does to...
Well, that is the problem.
Right.
That is the problem, because they are manipulating human circuitry psychologically and neurologically. They're making these artificial characters that mimic a personality.
Yeah.
And they're making them as cute as possible. And we are wired to feel empathy and want to protect and want to bond with cute things like human children.
Yeah, it's why
that ensure the survival of the species. That's very deep in our brains, and they are exploiting that circuitry to make you buy their product. And then they're not actually giving the full support to it. Right. They only care whether you buy it. They don't care about what happens after that, really. And what happens after that is very impactful for you because you bond with the thing.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's the reason we don't eat baby seals, but we eat cows, because one's cute and the other, well, some people think cows are cute. But
we eat baby cows, but they're cute.
Well,
I don't know
anyway,
if this theory holds up.
You're right.
Manipulating the psychology is the thing.
Yeah, and that's what's going on. And people are like, well, you don't have to buy it. I know, but then could somebody please be out there saying, don't buy this shit because look what it's going to do. You know what I mean? I get so annoyed.
There are people out there who say don't watch porn because it provides this thing that's not a real sexual experience, but that pushes all the dopamine buttons and gives you a high. And then real sex can never really compare to it. I wonder if this is going to be like that for friendship.
Yeah, if all of that is true, like, is this going to be that, the direct comparison of that? And I get nuts when people are like, well, you don't have to buy it. It's all voluntary. I know, but that doesn't mean you don't have to be aware that this is a potential thing. This is a real thing, and that companies, I think, are pulling some ugly shit. Okay. Whether or not, companies that do whatever they want is voluntary, but they're still doing some ugly shit.
Yeah. I definitely think it's concerning.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll be back with some more Sovryn Take.
Billy D. Williams talks about the power of Colt 45.
I've always heard about the power of Colt 45, but I was never sure exactly what that meant, so I got some, found out for myself.
Hey, Billy, you free tonight?
Works every time.
The dynamite taste of Colt 45. It works every time.
Whoa, hey, you want to slow down?
I don't do slow. I move fast.
Okay, well, so you're French.
Everyone in the future speaks French.
Wait. The future?
From 2099. Permanent Autonomous Zone, Osiris-1. You've been there.
Oh, this isn't happening. It only thinks it's happening. How do I know you're from Osiris-1?
RGP fingerprint Omega 746566666.
Okay, you're legit. Hey, really, be careful. You drive like you're playing a video game.
That is how you programmed me. Game talk.
It is time for Game Talk, but actually...
Speaking of bonding with robots.
Oh, yeah, right. Hey, isn't that fitting? We're not actually going to talk about games this week. I have a completely different story, but don't worry, Game Talk will come back next week. So, but I want to touch real quickly on the last story. We were talking about AIBO and these robots and all this. This is happening with software too. There's I think it's called Xiaoice. I was calling it Xiaoci when I originally reported on it about a year ago. But Xiaoice, sorry, is software. It's actually created by Microsoft, and it is a chatbot that people are using. I think in China, is the only place it's available. People are falling in love with this chatbot. Oh, God. And all it does is just respond. It's all pre-programmed. I mean, it's designed to learn to some degree, kind of like AIBO. But people are falling in love with this. Now, all that aside, okay, like I definitely think, I don't think Microsoft intended for that. I'm going to give Microsoft a pass on that. That was not the point of what they were doing with Xiaoice. Okay. And if you disagree, that's fine. I appreciate both
nobody
perspectives.
fell in love with Tay.
No,
So
right.
that.
Yeah.
Everybody hated Tay.
Right. But all you need, there is an ethical way to do this. And that is, it's just like open source the shit out of all. I mean, to some degree, the AIBO thing is solved by the market, because third party aftermarket companies came out that are going to repair this stuff for you. Okay. But that's the thing, is that companies, to allow for this, they need to open source the parts, the hardware, and the software. Just like, I mean, if the right thing for Microsoft to do is to eventually, if they say they want to cancel Xiaoice, okay, this app that people are literally falling in love with, open source it when they decide to can it. That's the right thing to do for the consumer, in my opinion, because that allows people to take its destiny into their own hands.
Or provide a therapist or something like that.
Well, I don't know they have a requirement to do that, but I mean, it would be good of them to do that.
No, they don't have a requirement, but I'm saying like that AIBO story started with a funeral. Why do people have funerals?
Right.
To let go of a relationship with somebody because
point.
they're gone,
Yep.
right? And there was no support there from Sony. They give maybe tech support for 6 years, but they never gave any emotional support. But yet they created a situation in which somebody is eventually going to need emotional support.
Yeah, well, and I would love it for companies to be conscious of that, to be aware that this is something, but they don't. Right? They don't give a shit. It's concerning. So anyway. Why don't we get into the story I want to talk about this week? I should have called it Space Talk, because we're going to, in fact, I might make a custom intro for whenever I want to talk about space.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
There's all these free sound effects from the Apollo 11 mission.
I have all of them from SoundCloud. Yeah, I spent like a whole night downloading all of that. I thought they were so good. It's like, free, Creative Commons. All right, let's do it. Anyway. So what I want to talk about is Elon Musk. There was at the Code conference, which used to be called the All Things D conference, but then yeah, I know,
that's right? Like putting the D in bread. There was this British slogan.
Yeah,
putting the D in bread.
Yeah. Well, the D stands for digital, not dick, but that's all right.
According to you.
Yeah. Now, if it was my kind of event, it'd be All Things Double D. But no. Was that bad?
Yes.
That was bad. All right.
I'm going to shock you with Pavlov.
Shit.
Slap you in the face.
Anyway.
The beatings will continue until morale improves.
Right. So at the Code conference, you had Walt Mossberg and Kara Swisher. Now, this is their new event that they call it, of course, because they now run independently from, when they were doing All Things D, they were working for the Wall Street Journal. Now they're on their own with Recode, which does some okay journalism. And I've been a fan. I've met Walt Mossberg and Kara. I mean, just they're genuinely nice people, even though they do have a lot of biases. But I guess who doesn't, right? So they had a lot of different people on. I could do a whole show based upon the Code conference that they had, because they had Jeff Bezos talking there, just a whole bunch, and they had Elon Musk talking there. And they talked to Elon Musk about quite a few different things. They talked about Tesla. And the conversation turned towards talking about Mars. And because, Elon is planning on humans being on Mars, within really the next decade. That's effectively the shtick here. And he has SpaceX, and they've been having varying degrees of success recently, at least success enough to where what he has to say could be seen as viable. But
now I want to just put a caveat on this, because do you remember a news story that came out in 2013 or so that said by 2015 we're going to have a colony on Mars, and I think it was Elon Musk who said that. Obviously that got pushed back.
Yeah, well, let's take him into his own words right here.
We're establishing cargo flights to Mars. that people can count on for cargo. And it's like I said, the Earth-Mars orbital rendezvous is only every 26 months. So there's one in 2018, there'll be another one in 2020. And I think if things go according to plan, we should be able to launch people probably in 2024 with arrival in 2025.
Thinking about life on Mars again, how do you think about cultural unification, systems of government, rules of law, establishing those very early on?
Well, I think I was just declared king of Mars a moment ago.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Take it.
Yeah, thank
Run.
you. So I think most likely the form of government on Mars would be a direct democracy, not representative. So it would be people voting directly on issues. And I think that's probably better because like the potential for corruption is substantially diminished in a direct versus a representative democracy. So I think that's probably what will occur. I think there's some. I would recommend like some adjustment for the inertia of laws would be wise in that it should probably be easier to remove a law than create one. I think this is. I would just be like let's just. I mean, I think that's probably good because just laws have infinite life unless they're taken away. So I think my recommendation would be like something like, let's say 60% of people need to vote in a law, but at any point greater than 40% of people can remove it. And any law should come with a built-in sunset provision. If it's not good enough to be voted back in, maybe it shouldn't be there.
So that's the framework for the government on Mars.
I mean, those would be my recommendations. The direct democracy where it's slightly harder to put laws in place than to take them away, and where laws don't just automatically live forever.
You'll be a good king. Thank you, Elon Musk. Thank you.
Okay, so there's him in his own words, and I think your early point there, Stephanie, was right on. That yes, this has been claimed and said over and over again. I mean, I remember even you could go way back to like Werner von Braun, who said that, oh yeah, we'll be in space
by
in the
2000,
1980s.
yeah, right.
I mean, like we're going to be living it up, and none of that happened, right? So, what do you think about this? Like he effectively he gave the timetable. He's saying 2025 people, so it is under a decade. 2025 people are going to be on Mars. You already said you're skeptical of that. Fine, I agree with you, and I share your skepticism. How do you feel about, though, like what he said about governance on Mars, this idea of a direct democracy?
Well, first of all, I thought it was ridiculous that was the first question the reporters asked.
Oh, it wasn't the first. I truncated that.
Okay, yeah, but like they definitely seem to place a lot of importance on that question.
Sure.
And I would just disregard that, and it was interesting how he seemed to like. So I think Elon Musk is a smart person, and like a lot of smart people, he's got some ideas that he thinks will work, but he hasn't thought them all the way through.
Sure.
Because obviously there's problems with direct democracy, too.
And, to his credit, I think that shows because he stuttered a lot. He was not charismatic at all.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think he was sort of still thinking that out.
Yep.
And good for him for not having it all planned and feeling really confident that he knows the right way to govern Mars or whatever. He's probably been asked that before, so he's like, oh, shit, I have to think of something.
Yeah.
But, it sounds like he had the best intentions, maybe like the founding fathers or something. But, what happens with good intentions, there was this constitution that was supposed to be a check and balance on government, and look where it got us now. So.
Yeah, which of course was a representative democracy, the purpose or what that constitution laid out as compared to direct.
And the other thing is like, he didn't say like, well, like, okay, he's like, well, it will be a direct democracy, and I say that because I'm king. He didn't say like, well, we'll have to talk about it with the people the initial colonists.
Yeah,
We'll have to see what they want, you know? Isn't that like the ultimate form of direct democracy, is actually asking the people, hey, what kind of government do you want? Do you want a government at all? I'm sure that won't be on the list. You know?
Yeah, I mean, well, how do you feel about direct democracy as a thing? I mean, what are your thoughts?
I thought it was silly because, like, if you're fucking on Mars and you're a Mars colonist, are you really going to be like, well, I don't like this law. Nobody likes this law, but we have to follow it because we haven't removed it from our ledgers yet.
Yeah.
No, you're just going to disregard it. There's no cops on Mars. What are they fucking going to do?
Right.
What are they going to do if you disregard the law? Like, so I mean.
Well, how do
Are you
feel?
going to go to Mars with a spaceship full of cops first, just to make sure there's order before anybody gets there? We have to have cops on Mars. That's the most important thing. Like, it's just silly, you know. Clearly, that's why I say I don't think he's thought it all the way through.
Right.
You know, and people just like hear that and they're like, oh, wow, what a genius. Yeah, that makes sense. It should be easier to remove the law. And they're focusing on that, but they're not thinking of like, okay, well, how does he plan to enforce these laws? You know, what is he going to do if there's a disagreement? What if the people are tied 50-50? You know, like democracy is two wolves on a sheep voting for dinner. There's problems with direct democracy. How many people are going to be there?
Right. Direct or representative, that logic still holds.
Yeah.
That it's two wolves and a sheep deciding on what's for dinner.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I'm going to play a game that I don't like playing right now, and that is that, you know, the what if, or if I, that actually, it's not what if, it's if I were somebody that actually thought government was legitimate or worthwhile, which it is neither.
Oh, this is a fantasy.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What he had to say would be about the direction I would take, right? Like the idea that laws should be very hard to even make. They should have a sunset. They should go away. You know, I mean, all of that. I get the sense when I heard him saying this, I was like, yeah, I think it sounds like maybe he reads a lot of Murray Bookchin. Okay. Which is, you know, there's a lot of what Murray Bookchin has to say that I actually kind of like. I mean, he is an anarchist. Murray Bookchin is not Elon Musk. I think that's clear that he's not. But yeah, I mean, direct democracy is still democracy, and democracy is still, a terrible idea.
He didn't say consensus, you know, because if you have a small enough group of people to make decisions by direct democracy, then you have a small enough group to make decisions by consensus.
To get 100% consensus
which
in
is
a short period of time.
Nothing happens unless everybody is on the same page about it.
Yes. And is that, Stephanie, I mean, granted, you didn't have time to think about this, but like, is that what you would, like, if you were going to Mars, is that how you would want things to be? Is to where you would be with a small group?
Everybody on Mars to be I would want to take Marshall Rosenberg with me to Mars. Like, I would want everybody to be familiar with NVC and various other problem solving and conflict resolution strategies. And yes, to make decisions by consensus, not to have any law enforcement, but just to have a small community. And I'm sure it probably won't stay small, but Mars is a planet like Earth. You know, you can go and move into a valley and be by yourselves with your family or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't have to interact too much with the other colonists if you don't want to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple points on this. Like I agree. Like I would want it to be where it is. I would be part of a small group, and that way the idea of 100% consensus, like, you know, could really take off. Now there are problems with 100% consensus. Like
well, if you choose the group carefully, then the problems are mitigated a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah, the problems with consensus run into where you have relationships that perhaps you didn't choose in the first place.
Yeah.
Or you have aspects that weren't necessarily chosen. Because like there's the old idea that in Judaism, okay, you know, by rabbinical law, if you're in a court, okay, and you know, you're the person on trial or whatever, there's a trial going on, whatever, and everybody agrees that this person's guilty, the person walks free. If the entire jury says that the person is guilty, that guy walks free.
There has to be some controversy.
Well, what the idea is that if something's too good to be true, it probably is.
Oh, yeah, that's smart. Yeah.
It is smart, but this is
Those Jews,
Hey, but here's the problem, or here's the difference between that and what you're talking about, is that this, you know, you are not being judged. You know, this isn't like your peers, your chosen peers. This is by random people and all that. And so then it does become an issue when you have 100% consensus. You might not want to trust that. And this is a major problem on the internet too. Okay. Because there's a lot of people that are saying they want 100% consensus, but look, you don't know everybody that's involved in all this stuff. So, there's way too many variables to where this could all be rigged and gamed. So I think you're right on with that. Now, there's an older idea where, because what if people do, like, I think you're right. Like I said, that's how I want it to where it could be 100% consensus within a small group of people, right? What do you do when people want to live in much larger groups? How do you solve that issue? I mean, do you have any thoughts on that? I'll admit, I'm saying I have a thought, but I want to hear what you think.
Well, another aspect that I think will come into play much more in larger groups of people is an economy starts to arise. Mm-hmm. Where when you have a small group of people, it's probably going to be subsistence farming, and maybe they'll start to trade little valuable things that are going to be there's going to be a situation on Mars where there's scarce resources.
Yes.
Right? Because the only materials that can be brought there are on a spaceship every 2 years.
At first, anyway.
Right. And, it's going to take a while. They're not going to terraform it. If they wanted to terraform it, it'd take a really long time.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to bring everything. It's going to be like that movie, The Martian, where they're going to be living in these little igloos, and it's going to be very harsh conditions. So, they're out of that. There are going to be survival items that are going to be necessary on Mars that are going to become incredibly valuable commodities. Mm-hmm. Some people are going to have more of them, and some people are going to need them.
Right.
And there's going to be an economy that comes out with trading. Now, there probably won't be money on Mars. They're definitely not going to be like a resource-based economy at first. But once you get to a big enough group of people, then you'll probably start getting money coming about. And it'll probably be whatever the most small, portable, divisible, valuable thing is on Mars, right? I don't know what that is. Maybe it would be water. Not water.
Eventually there will be some industry which may inadvertently terraform Mars. Eventually these sorts of things will happen. But you're right. An economy is going to start to crop up as people have children and as all this goes on. Yeah.
Eventually an economy will arise, and what will they use for money? I'm not sure, but there will be some kind of money, because that happens naturally in human societies, right? And also, if anybody's going to want to pass, before we even think about doing something like passing laws or enforcing laws, you need money, because how are you going to get the people to enforce the law? Is it going to be a volunteer job? Are people just going to do those jobs on a volunteer basis? If you want to pass laws and fund initiatives, you have to raise money or resources or whatever.
Yeah.
So, money and politics are very tied. And if you have no money, you have no politics at first, right?
Well, I think in particular, you're going to end up with trade. I think that's the term to use, because, there is human interaction, and human persuasion takes a specific shape.
Yep.
Not coercion, persuasion.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most people run to violence for persuasion. That seems to be the norm.
Yeah, well, there's a couple ways you can persuade, right?
Right.
Force or with bribes, right?
Well, it's trade or violence. I mean,
bribes.
Yeah, or bribes. Yeah. Well, even that's a trade.
Or sex or something.
Yeah. All that falls into a peaceful interaction. It doesn't have to be violence. There's alternatives to it being violence, but that's what's going to come up. And that trade can take the shape of money. It can take all kinds of shapes, right? And so, I think you're right that certain things need to develop in the first place, and there will be perhaps natural systems that will evolve based upon the very specific needs of Mars. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think Elon missed.
Absolutely.
Was that, wait a minute, we're in a very unique situation. Yep. And that's what you were describing.
Yeah. He's got to have a little bit of humility there. Yeah. And admit that he doesn't know what the best system of governance is for Mars yet, and it'll work itself out. Right. But of course, that's not really a soundbite that you can give to the media. They want to hear something like, "Oh, I have this all covered."
Yeah, they want some. Yeah, they want something sensational or whatever. But I mean, take for example, if you, this is really simple. Say we colonized Europa, okay? That's all ocean. The laws, or not the laws, but the ways people interact are going to be drastically different than any other way that you would on land. There's going to be, everything's, the way things get done will be different. You have to pay attention to the bioregion that you're in, for, how things are going to operate and how interactions are going to occur. They're just going to be very different. So what I want to bring up, and I think your points were spot on, is there's this idea called sociocracy. Okay. And it really doesn't have anything to do with socialism before anybody, wants to get on their high horse about that. But sociocracy, it's this concept, it was developed in the 70s, and it is the idea of taking what you first described, Stephanie, to where you have a small group with 100% consensus, okay? And then that group, one or two people in that group are interconnected like a chain with another group that is also a small group that works on 100% consensus. And then you have all these different interconnecting kind of cells. Okay. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to the smallest group, and that smallest group, of course, can walk away at any given time, blah, blah, blah. But it relies upon 100% consensus, but it allows for the growth of, say, more than however many people you have within your initial group of consensus.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really, like, if there were to be a road like that's kind of the road map of that road that you'd use, is that you'd have these groups, and you just, as more and more people come around, these different groups. I mean, and groups naturally develop anyway, just based around taste, around different, attitudes and platitudes that people have. All those things.
Geographic location, yeah.
All this stuff, comes together.
I mean, if you live in a certain trailer park in Mars, then you're going to live with other people who think like you.
Sure, right. Yeah, there you go. Wow, that was something. But anyway, but yeah, I think that's really what, sociocracy, I think, is kind of the direction to look at, and that's not direct democracy. It's direct. I mean, is 100% consensus, is that part of direct democracy? I wouldn't say so.
No, because democracy is just the majority. You don't need 100% consensus.
This you need 100%.
Right.
Yeah, so it's an interesting concept. Anyway,
direct democracy, everybody can give their input, but ultimately it falls on what the majority says.
Right.
But with consensus, everybody needs to be on the same page, and everybody needs to 100% agree.
There you go. Yeah, I like that. So with the idea of, you gotta watch out for, make sure that you're choosing all the parties within this consensus to some degree and all that. Kind of reminds me of Max Stirner's Union of Egoists. That's the same idea. Because if the idea of a union of egoists is that at any point somebody within this union is doing something that they're not choosing to do, that they don't actually really want to do or agree with, it's no longer actually a union of egoists, because you're losing that 100% consensus. Right on. Hopefully, I think the thing to take away from the story is that hopefully Elon Musk does not become king of Mars. And like you said, Stephanie, initially, there's a good bet it's just not going to happen. So, and I've talked about that on Sovereign Tech before. But anyway, we'll be back with some more show here. You're listening to Sovereign Tech.
Tonight, Knight Rider crashes into your living room.
I don't believe this.
Well, you'd better believe it. A lone crusader for justice drives this crime crasher.
The world's most fantastic car.
And together they can do just about anything.
After all, we're only human.
Don't press your luck.
And now, buckle up for action with the fastest show on television, Knight Rider.
See Knight Rider online today. And now back to Sovereign Tech. Pixel says it should be this panel.
We need to hack into the control center to shut down all of those assassin bots.
Well, you're the android. Can't you just jack in?
Oui, but the way I connect is more like a jack off.
Was that a joke?
Hacking is no joke.
Directly connecting certainly beats doing it with the keyboard.
You're notorious for your love of cyber sex.
Okay, now that was a joke. Just get hacking.
A quick hack solves everything. Hacksack.
It is time for Hacksack, and hopefully we can get into the main story that I want to do for Hacksack. Of course, being joined by the Duchess of Debauchery, the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy.
Hello.
And as always, thank you for being on. I think some people will say that on Mars, like that there will be, well, look, when humans first get to Mars, there needs to be some kind of governance. There needs to be some kind of government because, we got to get there incrementally and all that stuff. Boy, that really chaps my hide when I hear that kind of shit. I don't know about you. I mean, how do you feel about incremental solutions?
Where to get it? Getting where incrementally?
Like they'll say, yeah, eventually when they're on Mars, yeah, maybe they can get to a direct democracy or maybe they can get to where there's 100% consensus. But no, they need government
first. We need a king.
Yeah, first we got to have a king, then we can get to all the,
Yeah, you never get rid of the king. That's the thing.
No, that's the thing. Yeah, I always love the old saying, incrementalism in theory is perpetuity in practice, right?
Yeah, that's a great Yeah.
Yeah.
And summary.
And I always this is one of my favorites. Cause I get this all the time. It's like, I remember a guy said to me, it's like, well, a journey of 1,000 miles, it begins with one step, right? And I was like, no, you know what? If you're on a journey of 1,000 miles, you're going to be dead by the end of it if you're walking. And, it's like the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a jet and a skydive. It's like you don't waste time, doing baby steps. You just go for it. You know what I mean? So anyway, I get so annoyed with that. But this is an interesting story. This actually got sent in by a really great guy who actually you've met as well. But we keep people anonymous here. But the story has to do with, and really this person's looking for actionable steps to do about this. And I think it's important to bring up. And really this comes down to is that there are, the Supreme or Fourth Circuits, Fifth, Sixth and 11th Circuit courts, they're all kind of arguing over this fact that when you are using your cell phone, when the data from your cell phone goes to your carrier, to your mobile carrier, Verizon, AT&T, whoever you use around the world, whatever. Once it goes to that carrier, you have no Fourth Amendment rights at that point. Like you have no expectation of privacy.
Nobody told me that.
Right, yeah. So that's kind of the claim. And it's really crazy because the NSA is pretty much coming out and saying, and for a lot of these things, saying, yeah, no, you don't. And the courts are kind of upholding sort of this idea. And so a lot of people are hoping for a response similar to there was it the Electronic Communications Privacy Act that was passed to where your emails are protected even after you've effectively left them away, you've forgotten about them or whatever and left them on some server somewhere, they still need to get a warrant to get access to them. So people are hoping that for your cell phone data that eventually, the courts will say, no, they're going to have to get a warrant and blah, blah, blah. Now, of course, all that legality is bullshit. So why don't we just get to the point, to the heart of the matter and say, what can you do to keep that data from meaning something to the NSA or whatever, FBI, whatever group wants your data and asks for it from your mobile provider? I mean, the simplest answer is, and I've been saying this for years on Sovereign Tech, just use a laptop more than a mobile device. Don't use something with that mobile connection, right? Just become more reliant on a laptop. Stop being so reliant upon mobile phones because these organizations, these alphabet soup organizations definitely rely upon the fact that you are giving them all of this data. So stop, but that's not going to work for most people. Most people, like and use and often use, their mobile phones. And okay, fine. I get it. There's nothing that I know of. There really aren't many apps because you have two forms of data that the FBI is collecting and gathering from, the government effectively is gathering from, from your mobile provider. You have metadata and you have data. Of course, metadata is the data about data. Metadata is like the location information that your app happens to report. Things like this. There's not a whole lot out there right now that is designed to skew metadata. So there's not a whole lot you can do about metadata. Okay. So what you can do is you could tell your phone, there's a way in an Android phone anyway. I'm not so sure on iOS. In an Android phone, there's a way you can set up the developer options to where you tell the phone that it's somewhere else than it actually is. Okay. Like you can say to your phone, all right, you might be in New Hampshire, but you could tell the phone that you're in, England or whatever.
Huh.
You know what I mean? But the problem there is that what if you want to use a map software?
Right.
It's going to throw off the map, because because the phone is telling the app that no, you're actually in England when you're trying to get around in New England. Right.
But doesn't it get conflicting data? What
do you mean?
If the GPS locator in the phone is on and you're telling it I'm in New York, but it's sensing that you're in New Hampshire, doesn't it get confused?
Well, that's the thing is that a lot of phones are relying less and less. There's a whole lot more than just GPS that gets used on a phone for location data. So there's going to be a conflict. Yes, there is going to be a conflict of data. Okay, but the bottom line is it is going to create a problem when you set your phone to do that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So there's not a whole lot of ways to solve the metadata issue. You can run Tor, you can, root your phone, and you can run Orbot.
Yeah, but just don't, if you're going to get directions somewhere, you better print out a MapQuest, because...
Right. Yeah. There's going to be inconveniences with all of this.
Yeah.
So solving the metadata transmission issue is a huge problem that more companies need to pay attention to. Tor Messenger getting put onto Android and all that might be a solution for that. But there's the app Threema, which isn't exactly open source. It has had third-party audits, but it's not exactly open source. Threema is a messaging app that a lot of people are big fans of. That is designed to skew metadata, but we don't exactly know how that works because It's not open source. So there's that sort of option, to do that. Otherwise, you can encrypt everything. Like you can encrypt your entire phone. To try and hide, what you're saying. But even some of that gets into funny areas, like Telegram. Okay, you have the Telegram app that it encrypts things client side. Okay, which is what you want. That's really the only way to prevent it from being usable outside of the metadata to telecoms, to mobile providers, is it has to be encrypted client side. Now, people will say, yeah, but whatever it encrypts on your phone is all is all available in plain text on the phone. Yeah, it's encrypted before it goes to some server or a tower or whatever, and that's great, but it's still there available on your phone. Yeah, that's an issue. But for the argument that's being brought up here, how do you encrypt it from a mobile provider? You need to use things that are encrypting stuff totally client side on the phone. And you could use Signal. Threema supposedly does it. You could use Telegram as long as you're using the secret chats. That does it. There's a lot of those options. You can use a VPN on a phone, even though VPN, some people are starting to say that like VPN technology is getting so beaten and cracked, and
it's losing the arms
exploited.
race.
Yeah, it's losing the arms race, exactly.
So I'm sure it's better than nothing, though.
It is better than nothing. You could use Orbot, run Tor. That helps out with that sort of thing. But mainly, you want to look at whatever app you're using, whatever you want to do. You want to see what encrypts it client side, and that's often very difficult to find. So, I mean, there are, like, you can write text and all this stuff that can be encrypted on your phone before it, say, like there's Office software like a WPS Office, I think it's called, where it encrypts. It'll connect to whatever cloud storage drive you use, Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, whatever, but it'll encrypt it'll encrypt it, and it'll only be accessible via a password right on your phone. First out. So you could do that.
I would love to download that, but I don't download apps.
Right. And also, there's a concern.
Make space for that one.
It's not open source, and people freak out because it's developed by a Chinese company. So people freak out. Yeah. So there's really not a great answer to a lot of this. But go to darkandroid.info, and that'll get you started.
The reviews are in, and Babylon 5's a winner. The New York Daily News says Babylon 5 could make Star Wars look like a walk in the park. The Chicago Sun-Times calls it a welcome addition to the sci-fi universe. Impressive, perfectly scaled for TV, raves the LA Times. And the Kansas City Star says Babylon 5 is one space station you're likely to want to visit frequently. See for yourself what everyone's talking about on Babylon 5.
Babylon 5 is available for download on your favorite torrent site. See it now to experience the greatest show in television history. Babylon 5. Adelaide, why are we stopping?
In the future, we have a custom.
What's the custom?
After a successful mission, a team usually has love, a ménage à trois, or orgy.
Yeah, there's only two of us.
I already contacted the others to come join us. I love women too.
Whoa, Adelaide, you're beautiful, but you're an android.
I am fully functional. I am programmed in multiple techniques, a broad variety of...
Wow, I guess so. You did say you move fast. Adelaide, the future is going to be so good. The climax. What do you say?
Turning up the heat on Sovereign Tech.
What do you say, Stephanie? How about a lesbian colony on Mars? I mean,
that'd be awesome. We'd have to bring in new recruits every 2 years. No men, we wouldn't be able to reproduce. I guess we could have some sperm donors or something.
Yeah, maybe a couple.
Yeah, just take what you need from the men and leave the rest.
You get a lot of shit for that one. But
I already get a lot of shit, so
that's right. That's right. Yeah. So, I want to just touch on something quickly from the last segment. This is why I mentioned darkandroid.info. That is a great resource to find out, what apps you can use and all this stuff. But the main key that I touch on there is that, look, there's nothing you can really do about metadata. And even a lot of the encryption that you can do, some of it's questionable. And so the really only solution, it's how I start off my Dark Android recommendation, is anonymity. You need to pretend the device you're using, you need to pretend you're somebody else. That's the only option you've got. That's going to make things it can be very inconvenient. It can cause a whole lot of problems. But really the only way to solve the metadata problem and a lot of the other things is that it can't be you that owns that device. Like, you got to pretend it's somebody else's device. You know what I mean? Like that. It's kind of hard to explain, but go to darkandroid.info.
So the mindset, anonymity starts in your mind.
Yes.
Right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I don't know.
Makes sense.
Pretend you're some Star Wars character or something, but anyway, go ahead.
You are the Dark Android expert.
Yes, I am.
You?
Yeah.
You've got the website, and there may be some other learning tools coming out for Dark Android.
There might be a couple of them that I'm really excited about. So, anyway, let's talk about why don't we talk about something we don't talk about too often on Sovereign Tech?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is a really exciting topic.
What don't we talk about?
Let's talk about one of my favorite books, the Bible.
We do talk about that often.
Yeah, and it's not one of my favorite books, obviously. Before we break into that, and I kind of shortened this segment, so we've only got a few minutes here. But, Stephanie, you went and saw with me. I haven't done my Zogblog review yet. These take a while for me to write, so I haven't released it yet, because I need to be doing things that make money, frankly. But you went with me. I took you out for your little birthday night to go see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the second one coming out of the shadows.
I loved that movie.
Wasn't that
I thought
great?
It was so cute. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, and and I think you understood this, as long as you get it that the point, what they're trying to do is like, we are going to take the 80s, 90s cartoon and we're going to bring it to life. That was their mission, and they delivered.
Exactly. They really did. And I liked the first movie too, which we watched as a pregame before we saw the new one.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, I thought they were great. They didn't take themselves too seriously, but I was super entertained.
Yeah.
I loved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when I was a kid. I watched the cartoon. So in the first one, they just had the Turtles and April and Vince or Vance or whatever, their producer.
The
and
guy.
Then in the second one, they introduced all the auxiliary characters that came in later, like Krang and Casey Jones,
Rocksteady and Bebop.
They explained how they became the Rhino and the Warthog. And
it was great. It was just really good. I mean, so I enjoyed it, and I'm glad you did too, Stephanie. And
I loved it. It was just so cute.
Yeah,
and I love those turtles. They're just so sweet,
and they're fun.
The CGI was really good.
Yeah.
I wonder if they had actors like doing the rough
motion capture acting. Yeah,
and then they animated to that or something. But yeah, the CGI was awesome. It really looked like there were turtles walking around.
Yeah. My only complaint was I would have liked, and whatever, I don't care about spoilers, so folks, deal with it. I would have liked it if Casey Jones is a little more ridiculous. I thought that would have been great.
Yeah, he needed to be a little bit crazier, but I liked Casey Jones overall.
Yeah, he was serviceable. He was fine. But the thing when I clapped my hands and I just died laughing and I thought it was so good was the turtle van. Oh. When it started shooting, just like the toys did, because I had the toys, it started shooting manhole covers out of the front. I was like, oh my God, yes. that was the best. And people just didn't get it. A lot of people are complaining about it. I think they just didn't understand.
Oh, what are they complaining about? Come on.
Well, this is the problem with so many people is they gauge movies by Citizen Kane or by 2001 or something. And it's like, look, they're not the same audiences. It's not the point. Everything has a different purpose.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm
man.
glad you enjoyed it. Now,
the one complaint I had was Krang. I noticed his eyes were a different color. First they were purple, and then they were like a different color later on. Then they were like brown and green.
Oh, that's weird. Very observant.
Yeah, and I noticed it because I was like, ooh, purple eyes. That's cool. And then they weren't purple anymore at another point in the film.
Yeah, but you got everything. Spoiler alert. I mean, the Technodrome was there, the whole business. It was awesome.
It was really
And it
cool.
looked perfect. It had the giant eyeball on top and everything. God damn it.
And they weaved in all the elements. They really explained the story, and they stayed true to the story of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
So.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it very largely they
did. A little
I
updated with some modern elements, but yeah, they stayed true to the story.
Yeah, some people complained that the actor playing Shredder was significantly younger, because I think the last one might have been Kerry Tagawa, and they got a much younger guy to play him in this one.
Oh, really? Well, you didn't see Shredder much in the first film.
Right. Yeah, you barely saw him.
But the second one, he had a bigger role.
Right. I didn't have any problem with that because, just say that he got access to that ooze at at some point, like that purple ooze or something, and it made him youthful and all that shit. I mean, there's plenty of ways that could get described. I didn't have any issue with that. It didn't matter to me.
You
he even had Baxter in it. That was amazing too. He didn't turn into a fly yet, but he did have Baxter.
I remember him as the Fly, but I didn't remember Baxter, the human character.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Oh, the music sucked too. Steve Jablonsky's score sucked compared to Brian Tyler's from the first one. But anyway, other than that, no complaints. I thought it was a great time. Yeah.
Yeah, go see it. It's cute, and it'll bring you back to the 90s.
That's right. Now, we've only got, let's see, we've got about maybe 4 minutes here. So I want to just save people some time, and I think, Stephanie, you may agree. We were watching we haven't watched the whole thing yet, but we're getting into the story of Jesus, so who gives a shit? And because that's when all the boring stuff happens, and we didn't watch AD yet. But we were watching the History Channel series, The Bible. That was this big deal.
That was the History Channel?
Yeah, that was the History Channel, I think.
Okay.
And they made a big production out of it. And supposedly I remember there being a lot of controversy around it, because when you finally see Satan, people say that they purposely picked a person that looked like Barack Obama to play Satan.
We haven't gotten to that part yet.
Right. Right. Now, but the treatment of the Old Testament also, I mean, what is my opinion of this overall? First off, is that they totally left out all the disturbing parts that that happened, like with Lot's family.
Where his daughters get him drunk and fuck him?
Yeah, that didn't happen. They didn't show that.
They glossed over that. They glossed over all the sex, but not the violence. Like, they showed people like gouging eyes out and shit like that. And,
crazy.
But oh no, we can't see any sex. It's like Samson and Delilah just kind of lay down on a bed with all their clothes on, and kiss once or twice, and then it fades to black.
There was with Lot. Like I was saying, the other part that they left out was that Lot took in the angels, and the way he appeased the crowd, though, was because he said, "Here, take my daughters, rape them. Just don't rape these that he didn't know were angels. Don't rape these men. Just here, you can take my daughters."
Yeah.
Very, very.
They didn't show that part.
Yeah, they left out all the really disturbing parts, which I think is bad form. Like, I think that's bullshit to do that.
Yeah. And, this thing about Satan, I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
Since we haven't seen it yet. But to be fair, they did have black characters. And some of them were so there were 2 black angels.
No, one was.
And then
there
were 2
I think there was
angels.
a white angel, a black angel, and then there was an Asian one.
I remember a black angel, an Asian angel, and then another black angel.
Okay,
so there was
right.
a black angel
Regardless.
at Jericho, and then there was a black angel at when
I
Lot
think that
is
was
going
all
to
the same
Sodom
guy.
and-
That was all the same black
No, it was
angel.
a different actor.
Okay, all right.
Are you saying they all look the same?
Oh, shit.
Those angels, they all look the same.
Whoops.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, well, I agree with your point.
And then
Samson was
black,
Yep.
and he was like African. He looked African, and I thought that was really well done.
I thought that was great. I had no problem with them doing all that stuff. Making those characters, different races, all right on. Rock and roll, I think that's wonderful. But I don't like that they cut out a ton of shit, and they glossed over some of the better stories. And you never got to experience Solomon. I mean, there was so much missing.
Oh, they completely left out Solomon. Yep.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there's just tons of things missing. And they didn't take the opportunity to bring on the sex and all this stuff when they could have. I mean, I would have been
interested. They glossed
interested.
over the entire book of Genesis too.
A good chunk of it.
And the flood. It starts like at Abraham.
Yeah, well, you see Noah, like you see Adam and Eve, but they did. I mean,
but it's just an intro sequence.
It's a sequence, exactly. Yeah, and the CGI was rough, but I'm not that hard on that sort of thing. I mean, as long as the story's good, the effects don't mean that much to me. So I think it's a failure. I think it's pure shit. Even if I were a Christian.
Pure shit.
Pure
wow,
shit.
That's harsh.
Yeah, even if I were a Christian, I would be mad as hell at this. Like, I'd be like, this sucks because, they're cutting out so much. What do you think?
I think it could have been better, honestly.
It could have been better.
I think they could have expanded it and covered every story. And honestly, when I was a kid and they were trying to teach me this Bible shit, I would have actually preferred just not to learn it in general. But it would have been better if I had some entertaining movie to watch rather than just try to have a rabbi explain the stories to me.
But this wouldn't have been it.
This probably wouldn't have been it. It would have been better than nothing, but it's probably not it because it glosses over most of the stuff.
There it is. So not recommended for all audiences. Not recommended. The Bible. There you go. Anyway, Stephanie, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks,
of course,
Brian.
You can find Stephanie at smvoice.info. Link in show notes for episode 179.
And find both of us at sexandsciencehour.com.
That's true. Woo. All right. We'll see y'all on the other side. Carpe Lucem, baby.
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.